we have been specifically zeroing in on this year as a year of revival, a year of a stronger moving of the Spirit of God, overwhelming conviction inwardly that unless we have nature change within, our problems are not going to be solved. Transition is not going to take place. We've got to be changed within, or we just go in this circle. Revival in the minds of a lot of people, we have had experiences of revival. For instance, there was the Asbury revival. Actually, I went to Asbury Seminary or college. No, seminary. Yeah, seminary. I went to Asbury Seminary, and I was in between the great revivals, so I had no revival in between them. But Asbury's had great revivals where God just poured His Spirit out, and whoa, classes all shut down. People came off the streets. Reporters came. People got saved. They would send guys out of the seminary who were in that revival. They'd send them to other colleges, came up to Michigan, Indiana, so forth. They would come into the chapel of that college, wherever they went, and just give a little testimony of 5 minutes, and God would hit the place, and whoa, they had revival, and it was just phenomenal. That's not what I'm looking for. That went away. The Brownsville thing down in Florida went away. I mean, how could you have a phenomenal movement of God? 3 weeks it lasted, and then God goes away. I'm not interested in that. So what kind of revival are you interested in? Well, and I'm not trying to tell God what to do, but the kind of revival I want is the kind of revival where God moves upon yours and my particular life, brings such radical change in the inward being, so opens up His Word to me that I begin to experience continual life change in the flow of who He is through His Word, which goes on and on and on. So the revival I want you to have is the revival I'm having in my own life, which is what the school is all about. To bring a student in and literally immerse them, get them into, hook them on, addict them to the movement of God, but not just the emotional movement, but hey, we could have some more emotion, I don't care. But not just the emotional movement, but the unfolding of truth, wow, that's what that says. That's changing my life kind of thing that just goes on and on. That's what we're after. I've been experiencing that in our study in Acts. We on Sunday morning have been walking through the paragraph, chapter 4, verse 23, down through verse 31. We've been walking systematically through that we've been in it several months now. We are landing today on verse 27 and 28, and I want to focus on that. And this is really an introduction message to about 4 of messages that are going to come out of verse 27 and 28, which are all on the idea of the sovereignty of God in relationship to predestination. So that's kind of the unfolding of where we're going in the following Sundays. So come back. Okay, we're beginning at verse 23, Acts chapter 4, verse 23. And being let go, they went to their own companions and reported all that the chief priest and elders had said to them. So when they heard that, they raised their voice to God with one accord and said, Lord, you are God. You made heaven and earth and the sea and all that are in them, who by the mouth of your servant David have said, why do the nations rage? The people plot vain things. The kings of the earth took their stand, and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against his Christ. For truly against your holy servant Jesus, whom you anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate with the Gentiles and the people of Israel were gathered together to do whatever your hand and your purpose determined before to be done. One of the interesting things about this whole scene is the contrast that goes on. There was a phenomenal contrast between the leaders of Israel, the Sanhedrin, the 70 most important men of Israel, and the disciples, the apostles, and the early church. Obviously, one difference is that the Sanhedrin is made up of at least 50% of them were Sadducees, and the Sadducees are strong in this movement that's going on. The Pharisees are the ones that were moving to kill Jesus. The Sadducees are the ones now to persecute the church. And the Sadducees had no belief in the resurrection. And over here are the disciples, the apostles, the early church. They had this phenomenal belief in the resurrection. Well, they'd just come out of the resurrection appearance. They'd spent 40 days with the man. I mean, they'd whacked him on their back and their hand didn't go through. They ate food with him. I mean, what did you expect? And you want to say, I don't believe in the resurrection. Man, I was there. I was there. So they have this strong, he is risen from the dead thing over against, we don't believe. Contrast. There's a contrast in the fact that the Sadducees are all wrapped up in tradition. Their traditions, and they're all wrapped up in their ceremonies, and all wrapped up in, and they don't want anybody shaking their traditions, disturbing, upsetting what they've got going. It's a financial thing as well as a comfort thing for themselves, and they're all wrapped up in that. But the disciples, they're into this new stuff, They're into this, whoa, God is expanding my thought process. They're into this, whoa, new things are happening. The church is growing. Wow, look what's happening. And it's a contrast. It's a contrast. An interesting contrast in the fact that the Sadducees are the leaders of Israel, the Sanhedrin. They're dominated by fear. You see, this phenomenal miracle has taken place. A lame beggar has been made well, and that wouldn't have been so bad because miracles have happened before, but this miracle just tipped the scales because this miracle is on a guy who's been here he's over 40 years of age, so he's been begging. Everybody knows him. The whole town is talking about him. I mean, all of Jerusalem is stirred about this thing. Everyone's saying, whoa, this church thing, this Christian thing, this Jesus thing, wow, look what, and everybody's yakking their mouth about it, and it's all over town, and what are you going to do? And they are we'd like to nail those apostles like we nailed Jesus. We'd like to finish them like we finished Jesus, but we can't. Why? Because with the crowds, we can't. Offerings would go down. We can't see their lives are controlled by fear. Over here are the apostles. They've just been threatened. So what does the Sanhedrin do? Threatens them, says, we don't want one more word, one more voice speaking the name of Jesus. We don't, shut your mouth about Jesus. That's the whole deal. You can do your miracles, we don't care. You can have your suppers, we don't care. You can have your ceremonies, we don't have your conferences, we don't give a rip. Stand and sing and raise your hands, but just shut up about Jesus. That's all we want. Their lives are threatened. Look what they did to Jesus. What will they do to us? They are fearless. We don't care. Bring it on. Give it your best shot. And they're fearless. In fact, these guys, this early church thing, they became the fulfillment of what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. Your righteousness must exceed the righteousness of this group, or you don't even get in. And you view them and say, whoa, wow, you can't, these guys are, why are they that way? See, how did they conquer fear like that? How did they live over the top of their circumstances like that? I mean, how could they not have a pity party? How could they not, appoint a committee, discuss it? Well, how did they do that? And the answer, of course, is so strong in the passage because the whole passage is about the sovereignty of God. See, they were absolutely convinced, ladies and gentlemen, in the sovereignty of an almighty God. And that the Sanhedrin was not in charge, and their circumstances were not in charge, that what was in charge of their life was the sovereignty of God, and since he is in charge, The only one we got to deal with is him. And Sanhedrin, on you. We are going to deal with the sovereignty of God. And they came back to, Lord, you are God. And you remember the word Lord there is not the normal word, kurios. It's an abnormal word, only used about 10 times in the New Testament. It's despotes. You are a tyrant. You are a despot. You are an absolute tyrant with absolute power. Therefore, we don't need to deal with anything except you. And the sovereignty of God was their security. Now, it's interesting that when you come to verse 27 and 28, that just leaps out of these verses, that the sovereignty of God is just all over the place. For instance, in verse 27, you will note it says, for truly your holy servant Jesus, whom you anointed, there was Herod, who represents all the kings of the earth. There is Pontius Pilate, who represents all the rulers of the earth. With the Gentiles, well, that's everybody, except the Jews, the people of Israel, but they're there too. So here is all the rulership, all the power, all the authority, all the population represented of the entire earth. So the entire civilization, humanity, got together. That's what it says. They were gathered together. Now the word gathered together, sunergo, is two words put together. Sun, which is the idea of from, and ergo, which is the idea of to lead together. It's no big word. There's no real big significance that I could find in the word itself, but it's always in the context that the bigness, the hugeness of it comes. And so when you put that in here, you discover that's in the passive voice, which becomes overwhelmingly significant. See, that's not just to impress you kind of thing. That's, whoa, that really matters in the passage. Because that means that the subject, which is the whole world, got together. Why did they get together? They didn't get together on their own. They were moved upon. And the reason, and the one who moved upon them was our sovereign God. You know what our sovereign God did. He grabbed a hold of Herod by the nape of the neck. He got a hold of Pontius Pilate by the throat. And he jammed them together. And he got all the Gentiles in on it. And he said, come on, you Romans, you get in on it. And come on, you Jews, you get in on it. And he gathered, and they are in this herd. He's herded them together. A sovereign God with his almighty hand literally herded them together. And when he got them all together, he's responsible for that assembly. Well, you'd think God would, hey, keep them separate. Tower of Babel. Separate those boys. No, get them all together, man. And he got the whole world together for what purpose? To do whatever your hand and your purpose determined before to be done. So he grabbed the whole world, got them together, and what were they going to do? Exactly what he wanted them to do. The sovereignty of God can be defined as the power and might of God over all of his creation to determine, to cause them to do, and determine by what he determines and desires. The sovereignty of God can be described as the power and might of a God, of the God, who literally causes all of his creation to do exactly what he determines and desires. Now, I don't know how you approach that, but that scares me to death. Because I have no resistance against that. And when you tell me there is this sovereign, overwhelming, powerful person, that, man, there's no way around him. There's no way out of this. I'm going to end up being and doing, I can't, one way or the other, he's going to get what he wants. That scares me to death. Except Now we're going back to the early church. They believed that. They believed there was no circumstance. They believed there was no happening. They would believe that nothing was coming to their life. They believed that there was no involvement at all, but what? God had stuck his fingers in the middle of that involvement and had caused it, brought it to being in their lives. Now again, that scares me to death, except for one factor, which is the key to the whole thing. And we've been desperately trying to convince you of this from the very beginning. The whole key to the thing is what? The God who is sovereign is a God of love. The God who is absolutely all-powerful, it's the saving factor. It's the nature of God. That God's nature is the nature of love, and because his nature is love, it is absolutely impossible for him to do anything but love. And whatever may appear to be bad is not bad, but is an expression of his love. I'm a 3-year-old, and my dad is dragging me off to the doctor. And I've been to doctors before, and you know what they always do? They get out those big needles, and they stick me. I hate that. My dad is mean. No, he's not. My dad drugged me off to the dentist. This was back before they had painless dentistry. You just sit there and ground away. This was back when they did it by candlelight. And I'm saying to my dad, you are nasty, you are mean, you are, whoa. But he is sovereign over me, and what can I do? He's dragging. But that's a 3-year-old. Well, I got cancer. God is mean. Come on, 3-year-old. Look at the circumstance I'm in. 3-year-old. Why would this? 3-year-old. Come on, grow up. God is absolutely sovereign. But he is sovereign and has a nature that is totally, absolutely a love nature. Now that's all over this passage. God has got the whole world and gathered them together. They are there. He caused it, man. And why are they there? They're going to do exactly what he wants them to do. He elevated them to a place of authority and turned them loose to do exactly what they wanted to do, which ended up to be exactly what he wanted to do, which was all about what? The crucifixion of Jesus for the redemption of the world. What do you call that? I call that a sovereign God who loves me so much he'll go to any extent to get what he wants. God is out to get you. You can run, but you can't hide. God is chasing you down. He is literally sticking his fingers in the middle of your circumstances, and while he may not cause everything, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, he certainly has allowed everything. And you look at it and say, oh! But behind all of that is a nature of God that is so powerful in love that everything he's doing to your life is for your good. Sovereignty of God. Now, in relationship to the sovereignty of God in our passage, I want to share a couple things with you out of that concept. One is complete, the idea of complete. The sovereignty of God is complete. Do not think, well, the sovereignty of God, that applies there, but not over here. No, it always applies. Well, the sovereignty of God, yeah, the sovereignty of God. Well, that's true in this arena, but not true. No, the sovereignty of God is absolutely complete. There is no arena, no aspect of God that you can take the sovereignty and set it aside. God is always sovereign in every area. Let me just run through a few just to... Oh, we could spend all time on this. Wisdom. God is absolutely sovereign in his wisdom. he didn't learn truth. He invented it. He produced it. He made it. He thought it up and caused it to be. He is sovereign, folks, in wisdom. The guy by the name of Solomon, he came in and he saw something of the great purpose of God in bringing a nation out of Abraham and through his father David. And and here's Solomon saying, whoa, this God has this overwhelming plan with this people, and these people are, whoa. So how am I going to lead all these people? So God came into him and said, I'll give you anything you want. This was like finding the genie in the bottle and rubbing it and getting one wish. What do you want? One thing. Hey, name it. I got you, and it's yours. And you know what he said? Listen to these words. Now give me wisdom and knowledge that I may go out and come in before this people, for you can judge this great people of yours. So I can judge this great people of yours. He said, God, I see your plan. I see something of where you're going. Don't understand all the details, but somehow, some way, you've got to give me the wisdom. And since you are sovereign in all wisdom and your plan is going to be fulfilled, help me to be in the middle of that thought process. Wow. I want that. Listen to these words. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? Oh, the depth of the riches of both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, how his ways past finding out. For who has known the mind of the Lord? Or who has become his counselor? Or who is first given to him, and it will be repaid to him? For of him and through him and to him are all things, in whom be glory forever. Amen. A sovereign God. Oh, let me give you another one. He's sovereign in power. Which means what? It means that there is no power above, beyond him. He has no threat. There's nobody bigger than he is that threatens him. God is sovereign in power. Oh, listen to the psalmist. Twice I heard this, that power belongs to God. Oh, listen to this. Great is our Lord and mighty in power. His understanding is infinite. Oh, listen to this. Paul got a hold of it. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. See, the power of God is not just in your situation. It is eternal. It is sovereign. It always has been. God is sovereign in power. Oh, let me give you another one. Existence. God is sovereign in existence. Isn't it interesting? You come to Genesis 1 and, whoa, he's assumed. Where'd he come from? How'd God come up? What started? There he is. An absolute sovereign God in existence. Oh, listen to this. The eternal God is your refuge. Eternal God is your refuge. Underneath are the everlasting arms. That's sovereignty stuff. Known to God from eternity are all of his works. God didn't invent anything for this generation. He doesn't come to your life with, oh, I got a new idea for you. Hey, his works are known in the eternities because he is sovereign. Now to the King, listen to this one. Now to the King, eternal, immortal, invisible, the God who alone is wise, be honor and glory forever and ever. Amen. Now bring all of that into our passage. God has literally got this group and formed them, brought them together. Hey, here they are all. Here's the Gentiles, here's the Israelites, here's all the kings, here's all the rulers. He's brought them all together. And what are they going to do? They are going to accomplish his wisdom. They are going to be an expression of his power. And they are going to extend his existence. Well, there are a bunch of people shaking their fists. Yeah, they're snorting horses, according to Psalms. Because God is sovereign. And they are absolutely no threat to him at all. Well, let me give you another one. It's complete not only in wisdom, not only in power, not only in existence, but in love. Now, here's a tricky thing. Walk with me on this. God is sovereign in love. His love is absolutely under his sovereignty. But the tricky part of this is the nature of God is love. Track with me. His nature is love, not his sovereignty. Sovereignty doesn't tell me who he is. Love tells me who he is. Sovereignty is an attribute that he can set aside. Really? Oh, don't you see it? Here's a sovereign God. The second member of that sovereign God, Jesus himself, did what? Set aside his sovereignty to become a helpless babe. But ladies and gentlemen, when he made that leap, he didn't give up his nature. He didn't give up who he is. He didn't give up his love. And what came in as a helpless babe in his mother's arms was what? It was an absolute person of pure love itself, which is the nature of God. An agape kind of love, a selfless, give yourself up, never think about yourself, self poured out kind of love. Well, what about his sovereignty? Set that aside. So evidently, God is sovereign over his love, but wait a minute. His love is bigger than his sovereignty, so his sovereignty isn't found in his power, it's found in his love, so his love masters his sovereignty. And it's absolutely impossible for God to do anything at all outside of love, because love masters him. Do you believe that? See, bring it into this passage. God has got this whole group together. They're mean and nasty, I know. Rulers of the world, I know. They're against the Lord and against his anointed one. Absolutely. So they're fighting every inch of the way against God himself. That's right. But God is sovereign. But what kind of God is he? He's a sovereign God of love who has literally overshadowed that whole group with his love and is going to cause them to do exactly what he wants to do to accomplish the design of his heart, which is love. Bring that into your life. A sovereign God is moving in your life. Well, why is this happening to me? Come on, 3-year-old. God is love. And whether it's good circumstances in your mind, or whether it's bad circumstances in your mind, it doesn't matter. It is a direct result of the actual love of God pouring himself out, who is sovereign. And he is so sovereign that he has chosen to limit his sovereignty and give you free will, which is really sovereign. And when he gives you free will, that gives you the ability to shake your fist in his face. So shake away, oh 3-year-old. Shake away. Because as you shake in rebellion and create your own circumstances, while he may not have caused those circumstances, he certainly has allowed it because he is a sovereign God. And he has allowed those circumstances in your life for one single purpose, because he is a God of love, and sovereignty is dominated by his love, and his love is dominated by his sovereignty, and he is infiltrating all the circumstances of your life to bring about that which he has dreamed for you. Do you believe that? So could you look at your circumstances and say, a sovereign God of love is working in this scene? Is Romans 8:28 really true? And we have known that all things work together for good? You're kidding me. How could that be? A sovereign God whose sovereignty is dominated by his love, and whose love is sovereign. Now, take that concept, move it one step further. Complete. His sovereignty is complete. His sovereignty is conversion. At the heart of his sovereignty, if it's love, it is always redeeming, converting, changing, pushing, pulling for you and your good. If this is true. So the sovereignty of God, which is dominated by his love, and his love, which is dominated by his sovereignty, has one absolute focal point, and that is redemption. It's agape love, selfless, self-giving. See, God isn't interested in winning. God is interested in shaping. God isn't interested in, I got to have my way. God is interested in, what's best for you. See, God isn't interested, I got to protect my turf. Don't sit in my seat. See, God isn't interested in that. God is interested in, how can I promote you? How can I build you? How can I make? God is interested in pouring himself out. If every circumstance in your life is a redemptive circumstance by the sovereign love of God as it pours into you, what should you do with that, 3-year-old? What should you do with it? Pilate didn't get it. Can you imagine? Here's Pilate. He's full of himself. He's a ruler over all the Jews. They have to do what he says. He's got an in with Rome and Caesar and high political aspirations, and he's on his way up, and he's a man of Jesus is standing there, beaten nearly half to death, crown of thorns on his brow, eyes puffed out, beard yanked out by its roots, just standing there mutilated. And Pilate's talking to him, and Jesus doesn't answer. And Pilate says, "Are you not going to speak to me?" What's your problem? Why don't you talk to me? And then he said, "Do you not know I have power to crucify you, and I have power to release you? Don't you know who I am?" And Jesus says, "Oh, you 3-year-old. You could have no power at all against me unless it had been given to you from above." Come on, man. You think you're in charge? That's our passage. God got you boys together and said, "Hey, have at it. Shake your fist all you want to, but guess what? You're going to do exactly what I want you to do." Peter didn't get this. They're in the Garden of Gethsemane. Well, how do you handle that thing? I mean, here comes the crowd. Here comes the soldiers. Torches in the middle of the night. They're coming after you, man. What are you going to do? Get the sword! Get the machine guns! Wait, cut off the guy's head! Whoop, missed and hit his ear. That's how you handle it. What did Jesus say on that one? Peter, put your sword in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you not think I could now pray to my Father and he would provide me with more than 12 legions? Do you think this is I'm an anemic? Do you think I'm a powerless? Do you think do you think I'm a wimp? Is that what you think? Don't you know there is at my disposal a single word and the Father sends 12 legions? Come on, man. What do you think this is? Come on, 3-year-old. What's the deal here? What's the deal? Now, again, bring that into our passage. What have you got? You got God, a sovereign God, who's brought together a whole world of people who are shaking their fist against him and against his anointed. And he's elevated them to a place of authority and said, hey, you're going to do exactly what I want you to do. And when they did out of their own free will exactly what they wanted to do, it ended up to be exactly what he wanted them to do. Because he is a sovereign God, and he is a God who is sovereign in love, and his love is sovereign, and it's pouring through even the rebellion of your life to bring about what he wants for life itself. And you can go to hell. I understand that. You have a free will. You can make your way to damnation. Absolutely. But you're going to have to do it over his dead body. Because his sovereign love, nothing inside of you has ever been good enough to make him love you. Nothing inside of you will ever be bad enough to make him not love you. Because this isn't about you at all. This is about his sovereignty and his love. And he is absolutely stuck on, absolutely cannot get off of. Absolutely don't tell me God gets mad, jams his fist on a wall. Don't tell me God is out for revenge. Don't tell me that God has a wrath and is going to get so ticked off one day he's going to flip you into the abyss. Don't you tell me that, because it is not true. God is sovereign, and he's sovereign over love, and love is sovereign over him, and love is spilling out, and he is going to hound you. And if you make your way to damnation, it will be over everything he has tried to stop in your life, because his love cannot quit. Now, what would happen? Oh, think about it. What would happen if you would take your life and you would merge with that sovereign one? What would happen if that sovereign one, who is a sovereign God of love, who is absolute authority, who in power and might over all of his creation disposes of that creation to do exactly what he wants them to do? What would happen if that sovereign God actually came and lived within me, and I became his flesh, and he and my mind and his mind merged together, and I began to think like he thinks, and his heart and my heart began to beat with the same passion? What if I could literally engage? What if I could fuse? What if I could merge with that kind of a sovereign person? Would that not mean that Philippi jails? Well, just saying, man, just saying. Would that not mean, oh my, look what sovereign God is in charge? Would that not mean that I could rest? Would that not mean that nothing bad could happen in my life? Could I not look at the pressing circumstances of my day and say, whoa, good luck? Because you're up against a sovereign God. would that not make you fearless in your world? I'm a 3-year-old, Lord. Whew. My griping and complaining and belly aching, and I'm a 3-year-old. Help me to grow up. And I don't know where my problem is. Do I not really believe in your love? Do I not really believe that you are a sovereign God? Do I not really believe that your nature is love? And God, how could I not believe that? When I see you set aside your sovereignty to become the helpless one, that in selfless, self-sacrificing, self-giving love, you wanted nothing but redemption for me. And God, I'm a cockroach up against you. You can step on me and eliminate me at any time. And yet you are constantly massaging my life with your fingers of love. You're constantly taking me to the dentist and constantly you're after me all the time, God. And in my rebellion, even in my rebellion and in the circumstances I create that are my own mess and made out of my own structure, you somehow use them to your glory. You somehow infiltrate my messes. God, it's time to surrender. God, it's time to submit. God, it's time to just throw my life at your feet. It's time to merge with you, oh sovereign God. It's time for you and me to just get together in such intimacy that all my circumstances and all my life is just somehow directed by the movement of who you are, bringing about the fulfilled purpose, and there is no bad circumstance in my life. For you are a sovereign God of love merged with my inner being, and it is true, all things work together for good to those that love as you love. Heads are bowed. Come on, don't live in fear. Come on, don't live problem focused. Come on, don't. It's time to grow up, people. So I want to invite you in the middle of your circumstances, in the middle of your defeat, in the middle of what you're feeling, in the middle of your chaos, in the middle of your struggle, in the middle of your battles, in the middle of your questions, in the middle of, oh my, in the middle of your depression, in the middle of your squeeze, in the middle of, I want to invite you to merge with the sovereign God of love. moments of seeking, moments of openness, moments of moments of surrender, moments of relaxation. You've been a snorting horse, snorting underneath the circumstances of your own life. Some that you've created, some that were not of your creation, but it doesn't matter either way. Would you merge? And would you find him in intimacy, your security? I present to you a sovereign God who is sovereign over his love, which is his nature. But his nature takes control of his sovereignty. So all that he is in his sovereignty is spilled out in love. And he's working in your behalf. Be obedient. Seek with me.